Welcome, curious minds, to another deep dive. Today, we're not just exploring the mechanics of language. We're diving into something deeper, a profound shift in how you truly engage with English. This isn't really about memorizing more rules or, adding tons of words to a list.
No, not at all.
Instead, we're focusing on transforming your internal approach, how you actually think about communication itself.
Exactly. We're going beyond just grammar and vocabulary to uncover what we're calling the C1 mentality.
Okay.
It's fundamentally about the mindset behind, true proficiency, how you instinctively think, respond, and express yourself at that higher, more intuitive level.
Right.
So whether you're sort of solidifying your B2 or maybe already navigating C1 territory, this deep dive, it's designed to give you a powerful new toolkit.
Our mission today, then, is to equip you with strategies to unlock genuine fluency. That feeling of effortless, impactful communication. So get ready to slow down with us, go deep, and hopefully discover those aha moments that can make all the difference.
And we'll definitely invite you to pause and practice with us throughout this conversation because, active engagement is really key here.
Absolutely. Okay, let's unpack this then. Let's look at some common hurdles many learners face when they're pushing for that C1 level. It's a pattern I've definitely seen.
Yeah.
It often holds people back, even if they have, strong foundational knowledge. What's often the first internal block you see learners trip over, and why is that?
That's a great question. And it's almost always what we call the perfection trap.
Okay, the perfection trap.
Yeah. I remember a student, Anna. She knew thousands of words. Her grammar was impeccable on paper.
Wow.
Yet in meetings or, social gatherings, she'd hesitate, sometimes for minutes, because she was just terrified of making a mistake. She had all the knowledge, but that fear of imperfection, it just paralyzed her.
That story really resonates. It highlights how focusing maybe too much on correctness can actually become a barrier, can't it?
Absolutely. What's truly fascinating here is how often that pursuit of perfection actively blocks effective communication.
Right.
Fluency isn't about being flawless. It's about, connection and resourcefulness.
Resourcefulness. I like that.
Yeah. The real C1 insight is that when you let go of that need for perfection, you naturally become more present in the conversation. You're not performing anymore. You're actually engaging. And this shift from performance to engagement, that's what truly unlocks authentic C1 communication.
How so?
Because it frees up your cognitive resources, You can focus on your message and your listener rather than doing constant internal grammar checks.
Right. Okay.
A C1 speaker might not know a specific word in the moment, but they'll skillfully paraphrase or use circumlocution.
So they find another way around it.
Exactly. They find another route to convey their meaning smoothly, gracefully.
So it's less about having the perfect word, maybe, and more about having the perfect strategy in that moment. That feels like a powerful shift.
It is.
For you listening, maybe take a moment now. Can you recall a time you held back from speaking because you were afraid of getting it wrong? Imagine the freedom of just jumping in and finding another way to express yourself, even if it's not the first word that pops into your head. That's really the C1 mentality in action, isn't it?
It really is. And that leads nicely into another significant mental block we frequently encounter. It's what I call the complex vocabulary illusion.
Oh, I've definitely seen this play out.
Yeah.
It's almost as if many learners at this level feel, pressured to use big, complex words all the time.
Yes.
Like every sentence has to demonstrate their impressive vocabulary. But isn't there a risk there that it can actually make communication sound less natural?
Precisely. You hit the nail on the head. In reality, a C1 speaker uses words precisely.
Okay.
Sometimes the simplest word, maybe used in the perfect collocation, sounds far more natural and, frankly, impactful.
Can you give an example?
Sure. Think about make a decision versus take a decision. Both are clear, right?
Yeah.
But knowing the common collocation, which is make a decision in, say, American English, is key to sounding natural.
Got it.
It's about choosing the right word for the context, not necessarily the longest or most academic one. Clarity and impact often come from familiar words used idiomatically.
That's a really great distinction. It makes me think about how we can elevate even common phrases. Let's maybe do a quick exercise right now.
Good idea.
For you listening, take the phrase big problem. Pause us for a second. Brainstorm some alternatives that sound more natural or precise in different contexts. Think about how you'd phrase it talking to your boss versus a friend or maybe in a formal email.
some excellent alternatives that really illustrate that precision might be something like a significant issue,
Right.
or a pressing concern,
Right.
or even a critical challenge. All sound more advanced, sure, but they're also much more specific to the context. They add layers of meaning that just big problem doesn't quite capture.
That's clear.
Oh.
Okay, our third comment block, this is a classic, and I think it's one of the hardest habits to break.
Which one's that?
Direct translation from your native language. It's just so deeply ingrained for so many people.
It truly is. And if we connect this to the bigger picture, achieving C1 really means you need to start thinking in English.
Thinking in English, okay.
Yeah, it means moving beyond that literal word-for-word translation happening in your head.
Which is hard.
It is hard. It's about developing an intuition for what sounds right, feeling the rhythm, the natural flow of English phrases, rather than mentally constructing sentences word by word from your first language. It's really the core of a fluent mindset, moving beyond just the mechanics to actually sort of inhabit the language.
So here's a challenge for you right now. Think of a phrase you often try to translate literally from your first language.
Yeah.
We all have them. Now, brainstorm an English equivalent that feels truly natural, one that a native speaker would just instantly get without a second thought.
And this isn't just a mental exercise, right?
No.
It's an active step towards rewiring your brain.
Exactly. To think directly in English.
Okay, so moving on from blocks. This is where it gets really interesting, I think. The subtle artistry of C1 communication.
Yes.
It moves beyond just avoiding those blocks to actively embracing what makes English so rich and expressive. What's one of the first elements of that artistry that comes to mind for you?
Well, that brings us to one of my favorite aspects of C1 thinking, embracing nuance.
Nuance, okay.
A C1 thinker understands those subtle differences in meaning and tone between synonyms. Take verbs like consider, contemplate, and ponder.
Okay, yeah.
They all mean to think broadly, but consider is more general, like I'll consider your proposal.
Yeah.
Contemplate implies a deeper, maybe more extended reflection, perhaps on a difficult decision.
Like you're really weighing it up.
Exactly. And ponder suggests a quiet, often inward sort of rumination, like she pondered the meaning of life, much more reflective.
I love how each of those paints a slightly different picture. And they play with register, too, don't they? Knowing when to be formal and when to be, well, casual. Absolutely. Knowing when to say, terminate a contract in a professional setting.
Very formal.
Versus chill out with friends is crucial. Or think about discussing a challenge at work. With a client, you might say, we need to address this concern.
Okay.
With a colleague, maybe it's more like, let's figure out this issue.
Collaborative.
And with a close friend, perhaps, we need to sort out this mess. The situation dictates the language.
That makes perfect sense. And connotation is also vital, right?
Oh, hugely. Think about slim and skinny. They might describe a similar physical characteristic.
Yeah.
But they evoke very different feelings. Slim usually has a positive or neutral connotation, suggests, an attractive, healthy physique.
Right.
Skinny, though, can sometimes imply being too thin, perhaps unhealthy, even fragile. It often carries a slightly negative emotional weight.
Interesting.
Or think about ambitious versus pushy.
Ooh, good one.
Both imply drive, right? But ambitious is generally positive. Pushy, however, carries that negative sense of maybe aggression or disrespect for others. These subtle but powerful distinctions, they're like the invisible threads of the C1 mentality.
So it's not just what you say, but the feeling behind the word choice.
Exactly. And we want you listening to actually feel these differences. Pay close attention to how these words are pronounced, the rhythm, the stress, the intonation. Try repeating them out loud with the correct emphasis. Let the meaning sink in through the sound.
And that leads us perfectly into the melody of language. Because it's not just about the words themselves, is it? It's the music of English. The intonation, the stress you place on certain words, and the overall rhythm of a sentence. Yeah. How profoundly does that melody affect meaning?
Oh, it changes everything. A C1 speaker understands that intonation can completely alter meaning and emotion.
Like how?
Okay, think about the difference between you're going, spoken with a falling intonation at the end. That's just a simple question seeking confirmation. But you're going, with a sharp, rising intonation.
That's surprise or disbelief.
Exactly. The words are identical, but the feeling, the message, completely transformed.
Wow.
Or consider stress in a sentence, like, I didn't say he stole the money.
Meaning someone else said it.
Right. Versus, I didn't say he stole the money.
Meaning someone else stole it.
Precisely.
Right.
The stressed word shifts the entire focus. It's incredibly powerful.
It's incredible how much just a tiny shift in stress can do.
Mm-hmm.
So for you listening, practice saying sentences out loud. Experiment with different intonations, different stresses. Hear how your meaning shifts with just a slight change in your voice. This active listening and repetition really builds your ear for that melody.
Mm-hmm. And this raises an important question, too. What about grammar?
Yes, grammar.
At the C1 level, it's not just about knowing more rules. It's also about knowing which rules you can strategically bend for emphasis or stylistic effect.
Bend the rules. Are you sure?
Well, strategically. For instance, instead of saying, although he was tired, he kept working, which is perfectly correct. Okay. A C1 speaker aiming for impact might choose to say something like, tired, yes, but he kept working.
Ooh, I like that.
See how that sentence fragment, tired, yes, it lands with a punch. It emphasizes the effort.
Yeah, it does.
Or consider starting a sentence with and or but. We're often taught not to, right?
Yeah, in school writing, definitely.
But in speech or even in formal writing, starting with and that's why this decision is critical, can grab attention. It makes the connection feel more immediate, more impactful than maybe. Furthermore, this decision is critical.
More conversational, too.
Exactly. It's about making an intentional choice for effect, not just making an error. It's understanding the emotional resonance and impact of your phrasing.
That's a fantastic point. Making grammar a tool for expression, not just a set of boundaries. Okay, to bring all these ideas together, let's listen in on a pretty natural-sounding conversation.
Right.
It's between two colleagues, David and Elena, discussing some client feedback. Pay close attention to their subtlety, their hedging, and their sophisticated language use in what sounds like a diplomatic setting.
Okay, let's listen. Simulated conversation start. As David. Hey, Elena, have you had a chance to delve into the client's feedback yet?
As Elena, I've just started to scratch the surface, to be honest. My initial impression is that their concerns are somewhat justified, though perhaps a tad overstated.
As David, I tend to agree. The core of their argument seems valid, but the specifics, well, they seem to be predicated on a few misconceptions.
As Elena, precisely. I reckon what we ought to do is address the fundamental issue head-on while gently clarifying those peripheral misunderstandings.
As David, that sounds like a prudent approach. How would you feel about maybe drafting a response that acknowledges their stance before we subtly steer them towards our perspective?
As Elena, I'm on board with that. It's a delicate balancing act, isn't it? We need to be assertive without coming across as dismissive.
As David, couldn't have put it better myself. Perhaps we could propose a follow-up call to talk things through. It might mitigate the risk of further ambiguity.
As Elena, an excellent suggestion. A conversation would allow us to gauge their tone and respond in real time, which is invariably more productive.
As Elena, great. I'll pencil something in for tomorrow then. In the meantime, I can flesh out a preliminary draft.
As Elena. Perfect. I'll mull over the best way to frame our key points and we can compare notes before the call. Simulated conversation and okay, wow. That was incredibly subtle. What's the secret sauce behind that level of diplomacy and precision? It sounded so professional but also collaborative.
That's a great question because it really showcases the C1 toolkit in action. First, did you notice their hedging language?
Yeah, things like somewhat justified, a tad overstated.
Exactly. And predicated on misconceptions, I tend to agree, I reckon. These aren't just filler words. They soften statements, introduce nuance, and prevent things from sounding too blunt or assertive.
Right, which creates space for discussion.
Precisely. It creates a sense of respect and openness, inviting discussion rather than shutting it down, essential for diplomacy.
And I definitely noticed how collaborative their language was. It felt like a shared mission, didn't it? Even though they were addressing client concerns.
Absolutely. Observe their collaborative language. They frame suggestions with phrases like, how would you feel about Sigwon?
Yeah, that's softer than we should.
Much softer. And perhaps we could. And Alina responded with, I'm on board. This is a form of soft power, really. Showing respect for each other's input, building consensus.
And David asked for Elena's opinion, too.
Right. Demonstrating respect for her expertise. And in doing so, he made her an active participant in finding the solution.
Their vocabulary also really stood out to me. It wasn't like overly complex just for show, but it felt incredibly specific and natural.
You hit on a key point there. Their conversation was rich with C1 plus vocabulary and collocations, but chosen for precision and naturalness.
Like what?
They used exact, often slightly more formal verbs and phrases like delve into, prudent, mull over, gauge their tone.
Which means like assess the mood or feeling.
Exactly. And mitigate, flesh out, scratch the surface, balancing act, compare notes, and address head-on. These aren't just fancy words. They communicate exactly what's intended, minimizing ambiguity.
And those subtle additions, like the adverb, phrases, and modifiers, they really added a lot of texture, didn't they?
Yes. They used adverb phrases and modifiers like to be honest and invariably more productive, and adverbs such as somewhat justified and gently clarifying.
Gently clarifying, yeah.
These phrases add layers of meaning and detail, allowing for extremely fine-tuned expression. Instead of just clarifying, they are gently clarifying, which signals a careful, considerate approach.
I also got them using really precise nouns instead of just, problems.
Yeah. Indeed. They used precise nouns like concerns, misconceptions, and ambiguity. This makes their communication much clearer and more professional, leaves less room for misinterpretation.
Right.
Also, did you catch the metaphorical language?
Like scratch the surface.
Yes, and balancing act, flesh out. These make their language more vivid, more engaging, and frankly, more memorable.
Yeah, definitely. And the we language. I noticed that too. What we ought to do, our perspective, it really built that sense of camaraderie, didn't it? Emphasized a shared approach, a joint strategy.
Absolutely. And ultimately, this conversation demonstrates that C1 isn't just about language in isolation, it's about pragmatics.
Pragmatics, what's that exactly?
Pragmatics is essentially understanding not just what words mean, but what people mean by those words in a specific situation.
Ah, okay. Context.
Exactly, how context, relationship, and intent shape communication. It's about using language appropriately and effectively in complex social and professional contexts. That's a huge part of C1.
That's a powerful takeaway. Okay, let's have a practice moment for everyone listening. Think of a situation, maybe recently, where you had to give feedback or perhaps disagree with someone. Now, try rewriting what you said, or what you might say next time, using some of that hedging or collaborative phrasing we just talked about. Pause this if you need to, and really give it a try.
Yeah, this is how you internalize these moves. Not by memorizing lists, but by actively practicing in your own context. That's often where the real breakthroughs happen.
Definitely. So what does all this mean for your everyday communication? How do we actually transform those common basic statements into, well, C1 eloquence?
Let's practice reframing. We'll give you a common basic sentence, and then we'll offer a more advanced, nuanced C1 version. Ready?
I am ready. Let's do it.
Okay, first one. Simple. I haven't read the report yet.
Oh, classic. Okay, here's a possible C1 version. I must admit, I haven't yet had the opportunity to delve into the report in detail, but it's next on my list.
Nice. Notice the hedging, I must admit, and the precise verb delve into. Much more specific than just read, right?
Yeah, and it sounds more professional, less dismissive.
Exactly. Okay, next. I think your idea is bad. Ouch.
Yeah, a bit blunt. Instead, maybe try. I see where you're coming from, though I have some reservations about the feasibility of that approach.
Much better.
You acknowledge first, show you listened, then express doubt diplomatically. And you focus on the approach's feasibility, not attacking the idea itself.
Perfect. How about the classic? I don't know.
A common one, a C1 response, could be something like, that's an interesting question. I don't have a definitive answer right now, but I can look into it and get back to you.
Good one.
You show engagement, you acknowledge the question's value, and you offer a solution rather than just shutting down the conversation. It keeps the dialogue moving forward.
Okay, how about a direct order? I need you to do this.
Could be softened, maybe. It would be incredibly helpful if you could take the lead on this. Would you be able to prioritize it?
Why is that better?
Well, it frames it as a benefit, maybe a shared goal. Incredibly helpful. It uses a polite request structure, and it gives the other person agency by asking about their capacity. Would you be able to prioritize it?
Much more collaborative. Okay, here's another common one. I disagree.
Simple, but can be confrontational, you could say instead. That's a valid perspective. However, I tend to look at it a bit differently. What if we considered?
I like that.
It shows respectful disagreement, right? You validate their viewpoint first, then state your different perspective gently, tend to look at it a bit differently, and importantly, you open the door to alternatives, inviting them into a shared problem-solving space.
Excellent. And finally, that's good. Just that's good.
A bit vague, isn't it? You could upgrade that to something specific like, that's a solid foundation to build on. I'm particularly impressed with the attention to detail in the second section.
Specific praise.
Exactly. It offers specific, Meaningful praise rather than vague, generic feedback makes your comments much more impactful and shows you actually engaged with it. So notice how all these upgraded responses feel more precise, more diplomatic, and definitely more collaborative. That's the C1 mindset in action. They use varied vocabulary, different sentence structures, all to convey nuance and maintain a professional, respectful tone.
Yeah. And we really encourage you listening to take a few minutes right now, maybe after this deep dive, to create your own upgraded versions. Pick some basic sentences you use often.
Good idea.
When you actively do this, your brain starts wiring those new habits. You start shifting towards C1 thinking, not just C1 speaking. This kind of active practice, it's often where the real learning clicks.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay, as we start to wrap up this deep dive, just remember, true fluency, especially at this C1 level, it isn't really about perfection. It's about effective communication, achieving clarity, and navigating social interaction appropriately. By developing this mindset we've talked about, you're not just learning English grammar rules, you're truly learning how to think in English.
Precisely. It's about developing that intuition for the language, using the right words with the right tone for the right situation, and really embracing nuance. It's the difference between just speaking words and truly communicating ideas with impact, with grace. That's the heart of the C1 mentality.
So, for your challenge this week,
Yeah.
we want you to listen actively to any English content you consume. Could be another deep dive, an interview, a webinar, maybe even just a casual conversation you overhear or participate in. But don't just listen for the words. Listen for how they're used, especially in maybe tricky social or professional situations.
And specifically, try to spot and maybe jot down 3 examples of hedging language, or subtle nuance, or that collaborative phrasing we discussed. Then, the important part. Try using them yourself in your next English interaction. Could be in an email, could be in meeting, or even just a casual chat. Give it a go.
And, if you're feeling particularly brave, maybe even record yourself speaking. Then listen back and compare your tone and phrasing to what you heard in the content you analyzed.
It's an incredible learning tool, sometimes a bit eye-opening, but really effective.
Definitely.
And maybe consider this final provocative thought. Mastering these C1 mental shifts doesn't just improve your English. Think bigger.
Okay.
It empowers you to navigate complex social and professional landscapes with much greater confidence and influence in any language.
Oh, interesting.
The principles of diplomatic communication, nuanced expression, strategic phrasing, these are arguably universal skills. They transcend linguistic boundaries and can fundamentally improve how you approach communication itself across the board.
That's a fantastic point to end on. These aren't just English skills. They're really life skills, communication skills. We can't wait to hear how you get on applying this. Maybe think about just one mental shift you're going to try this week.
Until then, keep practicing, keep thinking critically about language, and keep building that fluent mind.